Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing Blue-Black Reanimator, but with a bit of a twist. So the ban update is coming at the end of the month, and Blue-Black Reanimator is by far away the best deck in legacy right now. It's put up almost twice as many online top 8 finishes than the second place deck, so clearly it is doing something pretty good. Now, people are discussing what is going to get banned from this deck. Now, there's a lot of variance of opinion. I personally think Entomb should go because that just allows you to slot in this really small package of Archon, Atraxa and some reanimation spells with the Entomb, and you get the big scary monsters instead of having to work hard for it. Whereas like a deck like Sneak Attack has to work hard to get its monsters, has to play a lot of them, and I feel that would be a fairer way to make full-on reanimated decks work. Some other people think Reanimate should be going, which is what we're testing today. So we're not playing Reanimate because it is the most efficient reanimation spell going, so maybe hitting that will affect this deck. So we're playing something a little bit different to see if we can still be a really strong deck without it, so that's what we're testing today. Some people also think Troll of Khazad-dûm should go, which I think gives the sort of free creature in the graveyard, which does help this deck quite a lot too. So I think Reanimate is the card that probably has the least impact if you ban from this deck, to be honest. But some people have been calling for it, so I'm here to test it out and see how it goes. So what we're playing instead, we have got Life and Death. So Death is a 2-mana return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to its mana value. So it's a 2-mana Reanimate that can't target things out of your opponent's graveyard. There is this other side where all lands you control become 1/1 creatures until end of turn, they're still lands. We could splash a single underground mortuary to get this going, but I don't really want to do that. We're just going to be playing this for the death half. On top of that, we also have Metamorphosis Fanatic. Now, obviously, this is a card that sees a little bit of play in the archetype, but it's kind of fallen out of favour in recent weeks. But this is a 2-mana 4/4 lifelink that also brings back one of your guys. Pretty good, but you have to miracle it. Although we are playing cantrips and stuff to try and fix our deck to make sure that happens. By having one, the chances are we won't have it in our opener, and by the time we draw it, we can just cast it. I think the lifelink on this is actually really important too. So the rest of the deck is pretty much just a stock list here. You know, we've got both of our giant monsters here. We've got the trolls, which let us run a small land count, as well as having another monster here. We've got some really good disruption in Thoughtseize, Force of Will, and Daze. We've got some generically good spells like 3 Brazen Borrowers to bounce some annoying stuff out of play. We have 1 Barrowgoyf and 1 Murktide Regent. We've got all the cantrips you'd expect, and we are still running Animate Dead in Entomb. We have 3 Wastelands, a couple of fetch lands, and 1 of each basic. And that's pretty much it. Sideboard-wise, we've got some more Barrowgoyfs, and we want to be beaten down. We have a couple of Dauthi Voidwalkers. We also have a Surgical Extraction, so we've got a little bit more Graveyard Hate alongside this Ghost Vacuum. We've got some removal in Fatal Push and Go for the Throat, as well as Engineered Explosives for taking out things like Chalices and such. Although Chalice isn't as scary against this particular build because we have more 2-drop reanimation spells. So we've actually changed our curve a little bit here. We've got a couple of Consigns for like Eldrazi and stuff like that. And then a Force of Negation for when we need extra tools against turn 1 combo decks. So that's the deck. We're going to see if this deck can live without Reanimate. I suspect it probably can, but let's find out. Alright, please remember to like and subscribe. And let's see if there's some life in Blue-Black Reanimator without Reanimate. If you want to play some Eternal Magic, why not check out the New York City first annual Eternal Team Trios Winter Tournament. This is a legacy, modern and vintage team event, and team events are always some of the best of Magic events going, so why not check it out if you're in the area. Alright, our opener for the very first round. We get to make a big monster on turn 2, provided we find a land. We can also disrupt our opponent, we can look for our second land with a ponder, we can take this at whatever speed we need. We certainly have the tools to win this game, I would imagine. It's a case of what tools does our opponent have to interact with us, and do we need to interact with them? Because of how detrimental Wasteland is going to be to us, I am inclined to ponder on the first turn. But we'll see what our opponent plays, and then we can play it by ear a little bit. Because if we don't hit a second land drop, we're not going to do our thing anyway. The change of losing Reanimate means that we can't actually just go off on one land. A Plains. Okay, I think I want to cast a ponder here and look for more land. This means we're looking at turn 3 massive creature. Okay, so there is a land there. We don't really need this Animate Dead. We should have put it the other way around. Actually, I want the Brainstorm. Actually, no, we're going to draw the Brainstorm, aren't we? Yeah, this is the correct way. So we take our land, and then we can surveil off the Animate Dead. No second land from our opponent. Interesting. Let's get rid of this. So we can just Entomb and then Reanimate next turn. We could Thoughtseize. I think we're just going to hold up this Entomb. Just getting an Atraxa is pretty solid here. So I'm getting blue-white control vibes at the moment. Right, so we can fire with this Entomb because we don't care if it gets counterspelled because we have another one. So our opponent spends resources on this. That's okay. Right, there is an Atraxa. Best draw for us here is a land. Not a land. So I could Thoughtseize just to see if we can get this in or not. Alright, I'm going to Thoughtseize, I think. Do I want to Brainstorm first? If we Brainstorm first, then our opponents can Daze this Thoughtseize. I don't want this Thoughtseize being dazed. So we're going to Thoughtseize our opponent here. They don't have any mana to move stuff around. Okay, they got a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and they got double Force of Will. That is intriguing. I guess we take one of the forces. And we'll cast this Brainstorm now. So we can move some stuff around. Have a Wasteland I'm not particularly interested in, but I am interested in this Metamorphosis Fanatic though. So that's going to go on top and we can draw that next turn. I guess we put the Brainstorm down, and then we put the Fanatic on top of it. And then we're just going to kind of bully our way through what's going on here. The fact that our reanimations cost 2 does actually make an impact on what we're doing here, for sure. It's going to be harder to double load a reanimation turn. But what happens is we Metamorphosis Fanatic, they counter it. Next turn we Animate Dead the Fanatic, which then brings back the Atraxa. And we're laughing at that point. Back to basics. Well, the laughing is not happening anymore, is it? Wowzers trousers. A bit rude. So we do have 2 basics in our deck. We have Trolls that can find one of our basics as well. Yeah, that was a very good top deck from our opponent there. So they need a land before they can start making any inroads to winning this game, but they can just ponder looking for the land for the Jace from the following turn. We didn't have any choice with the lands we had because we didn't have any fetches. We just naturally drew the lands. So we couldn't have made any decisions to play around back to basics in this game. There's the ponder. So if, let's say, we had a 1-mana reanimation spell, we would have been able to Thoughtseize our opponent and then reanimate on the turn where we Thoughtseized. Obviously, we kind of only drew some of these reanimation spells after that point anyway, so it wouldn't really have mattered. But this is what we're here to look at today. Mountains, our opponent is on Jeskai. Can we draw a land? No, we're not going to. Because we had the Brainstorm on top that we put there earlier. Getting back to basics and then immediately Brainstorm locked because of the back to basics as well. It's kind of annoying. Snapcaster Mage, so they have a win condition now. Getting back to ponder. Surprised I didn't go for a Jace to just keep going upstairs and then make sure we never draw a land. Like, from our opponent's perspective, they're probably scared that we can just 1-mana reanimate them. Which is obviously a thing that's not going to happen if reanimate gets banned, because everyone will know it's banned. Crack this. Take Swamp. So the spell is definitely getting countered. But then we just need to find a land to then send it again. I think this makes sense. So this is just going to be, we're losing our Wasteland here and this death to get rid of this Force of Will. And if we can draw a land, then we can put an Animate Dead into play. Force of Will, pitching the Brainstorm rather than Jace, sure. But we have a basic now. Voice Mystic, we know they already have a Cauldron. So this is going to be a relatively quick clock once they string it together. Now Atraxa can just get around this. Oh, Assimilation Aegis instead. That's, well, not instead, as well as. So this means if we make a big monster, they can then just steal it effectively. So I think this game is over. Yeah, I'm willing to scoop this one up and go to the next one. So our opponent is doing the whole control thing. So this means we just want more threats and just overload their interaction. That's usually how I like to approach control matchups. So we have these 4 cards which can increase our threat density. What am I not in favour of? The Borrower is pretty good against the Cauldron, so we can just bounce out of the way. I'm just debating whether or not we need any removal. I don't think I want to be leveraging removal that much. You can maybe go down a little bit on reanimation, because our opponent's going to have some sort of graveyard hate. Quite what that graveyard hate is going to be, we don't really know yet. But this is a card that also bridges the gap against graveyard hate, because it is just a 2-mana 4/4, which is one of the reasons I quite like this card. I think in a world without reanimate, this card does look a lot tastier. We definitely want the Thoughtseizes. Dazes are okay, but that's something our opponent can play around. Same with the Force of Will, it's okay, but the issue is it's going to have a drawback for us. Pitching 2 cards, not always the best thing for us to be doing. But if we're just getting those final bits of damage through, that's obviously pretty handy here. So we're swapping out some of the removal for cards that just on their own can attack and deal damage to our opponent. We could have removal for the Stoneforge, but I think our better bets is just to get some big monsters in and just bash. We can interact using Daze and Force of Will. Maybe on the draw we swap it around a little bit so we actually do bring in some removal. But we can bounce away the scary Cauldron Germ. Okay, we can play around back to basics quite easily here. So you can go get basic island now. I don't believe our opponent's running Stifle, but if we're doing this anyway, there's no reason to give our opponent any opportunity to interact with it at all. So we could bluff like an Endurance, sorry, not Endurance, an Entomb on their turn. Alright, so we have the Entomb here. So we're going to Entomb in our opponent's turn here to play around things like Force of Negation to a degree. Okay, so they're brainstorming now. I'm going to Entomb in response. Let's get this Atraxa. We want the card advantage here. So another option you could run instead of Life and Death is Exhume, but that obviously brings back one of your opponent's creatures. So I'm not a big fan of that one in the current Legacy format. They miss on land here. They're going to have to go to cleanup. Let's try an Animate Dead on this Atraxa, please. I'm not expecting this to resolve, but we have loads more stuff to try and force through here. Force of Negation, pitching counterbalance. So we cast him to Turak instead. That's fine. I think we're going to get Surveil land. Right, 6 cards in our opponent's hand. They're all business. Let's go and get this Surveil land. Underground Sea. Do I want this? I don't think so. See if our graveyard popped out. So we're using these lands in case something happens and there's a back to basics down the stretch. Always just getting a good habit of tapping your basics. Force of Will, sure. So in theory, our Barrowgoyf is more likely to resolve, but they might have some white removal for it. I'm going to hold on to this troll for a bit. Let's get Barrowgoyf in. Just keep coming with the threats. Right, we're in. They might have a plow, they will need to find a white source. I suspect they... I don't know, if they had a cantrip, they would have used it by now, surely. Alright, so there's the plow. Is there any point brainstorming in response? We have a shuffle effect already anyway. We have 2 of them. I'll brainstorm and see if anything shakes loose here that we can try and interact with. Ooh, Spell Pierce. Okay, I guess we lose our poor little Barrowgoyf. And Animate Dead. Okay, let's get this Atraxa back. Wow, okay, triple force. Like, they had to have a lot of stuff because they haven't anything else going on. We're pretty close to casting this troll, so I'm not going to cycle it just yet. Also gives us more food for brainstorms. I'm going to save this Entomb as a shuffle effect. A Brazen Borrower. That is a creature that can attack, which is what it's going to be here. Unless our opponent plays a Stoneforge right now. Volcanic Island. Play a Borrower. You can see the absolute wealth of things our opponent had to have to interact with us here. Play the Sewers. Life and Death. I'll put that on top of my library. That is just an Atraxa. If they play something to remove our graveyard, then we can Entomb again. So if they have like... I don't know what they would play on their turn that they wouldn't just have to crack on our turn. Like Rest in Peace isn't something we get to interact with the round anyway. And if they've got like Soulguide Lantern effect, they just play it and then strip our Atraxa and have it ready to go. But we can still shuffle if we don't really want to draw a reanimation spell. So we've gotten through 3 Force, Spell Pierce and Plow. And we're about to try and send it again with an Atraxa. Right, let's see if we can get any sort of use of mana or interaction. They didn't shuffle off the Ponder, which is a little bit worrying for us. Right, let's try and get back Atraxa again. It's the 3rd time the charm. They're paying around Spell Pierce here. They have a Surgical Extraction. Okay. So they've had all of these things, and they're still currently on board losing. We're 1 mana away from just hard casting a troll. If we draw a Metamorphosis Fanatic, we can Entomb with a Miracle Trigger on the stack, so we have something sweet to bring back. Another land from our opponent. Are they going to play like a Jace here? Just getting a Tundra to shuffle those Ponder cards. Alright, don't mind a Barrowgoyf. So I can play this now and have lethal in 2 turns. This plays around spot removal better, but plays into sweepers a little bit. They have white, so Supreme Verdict is represented here. Do I think our opponent's bringing in Wrath against us? Probably not though, right? Let's just see if we can give them something to worry about here. The 4th Force, there it is. Our opponent is now hell-bent drawing randomly off the top when we have a 2-turn clock in play though. So we've had a lot of tools to stop us, but everything we're doing requires stopping. Like if any one of these things manage to last a turn cycle, they lose. So I can understand things look alright for our opponent there. Okay, so we've got a Snapcaster Mage. He's going to get back the swords and plow our Borrower. Yep, there it is. Swords being selected, Borrower being plowed. Not a bad draw for our opponent there. Let's cast a Brainstorm and see if we can work something out here. I do not want this Archon of Cruelty. Not in my hand anyway. Do I want the Entomb? I don't think we need the Entomb. Like, the Troll is something we're threatening to cast very soon. We could just put the Entomb on top, cast the Barrowgoyf, and leave it at that. Rather than casting the Ponder now. Our opponent is once again facing lethal without... Okay, so without any cards in hand. So now they've got Brainstorm, so they're going to be doing a amount of digging to try and answer our Barrowgoyf. But next time we can draw the Entomb and have a Ponder look for any reanimation spell line. And that seems pretty good. By not playing the Ponder here, if they do have something like a Back to Basics, we only have 2 lands locked down. Right, Plough, so we definitely want to draw the Entomb now. Rather than shuffling. So we see 1 additional card if we Entomb first. So I think I'm going to Entomb first. Just get that Archon off the top. We can find another Ponder. That's fine. I think there's any order in shuffle at this point. A Brazen Borrower. Don't really want to bounce this Snapcaster Mage, but we do have a threat now. Life total is not under any pressure from the Snapcaster Mage. We just need our opponent to not find a source of card advantage, ideally. Okay, so we can... We've already got double Sewers here. So we're just going to play this Borrower and then step and cycle. And then we play Borrower into Troll. 2 cards on our opponent's hand. They might be fearful of something like a Bowmasters. Let's get in the Borrower. Let's Swamp Cycle. Another C. Get to attack with the Borrower. So we have 2 choices here. We can Ponder to potentially just win the game on the spot, reanimating the Archon, or we can just play out this Troll and have a guaranteed thing that wins. Well, not guaranteed, but it's giving us 2 lethal threats that our opponent has to deal with. I think that is better than going for the win right now. Brainstorm response. If they're Brainstorm locked after this, then they will be likely to concede as well. Do you have the tools to deal with 2 big monsters? Well, the Brazen Borrower isn't a big monster, but when our opponent's life total is 2, it's big enough. And then we still have Ponder into any reanimation spell. Oh wow, they don't have anything. They're brainstorming to dig 1 card deeper. I don't actually like this. I think you want to wait till your turn, draw another card, then you get 2 cards deeper. And then maybe that finds you a little bit more action to get out of here. It means that they're currently looking for counter magic. Because otherwise you do that on your turn, see more cards, and then have your white mana up to kill our creatures. This is going to be a double Plough turn. They got a land. Okay, so they can shuffle and clear that Brainstorm. They're on 1 life. We don't have Brazen Borrower in our list. And we get there. So our opponent had like 4 Force of Wills, Surgical Extraction, Spell Pierce, Plough, Snapcaster Plough. They had everything and they still couldn't beat it. Felt pretty good on my part there. I think I'm okay just to go back in again. Do I want to have something to deal with a Stoneforge? Like, Daze gets worse on the play, on the draw, sorry. So maybe we'll bring back a Force and have a push in there, just as like a nice thing we can have access to, or we could just have another piece of reanimation. I think we just have another piece of reanimation there. Mix up the numbers a little bit. We've got triple Borrower in our particular list, so I don't think... Like, we only care about 1 creature they have, and that is the Call to Germ token. And having just a clean answer to that already as a 3 of in our deck feels alright. And the Archon of Cruelty can just eat a bunch of stuff anyway. Alright, here we go. We have the ability to play on basics, so we can ignore back to basics. Our hand isn't the most powerful, but I'm going to keep it because we can play around back to basics. And as you saw, our opponent needs a lot of tools to deal with us. We're not under that much pressure. We can just have like a nice leisurely stroll into this game, really. Yep, Ponder from our opponent. We also get to Ponder on turn 1. I'm not going to cycle the Troll on 1. Unless we draw a reanimation spell, then maybe we change tact and then we go to turn 1, cycle for Swamp, turn 2, reanimate it. But I think Ponder is just going to be a better play for us most of the time here. They did not shuffle off that Ponder, but it took a while about it. Force of Will. Relatively happy to see that, because that means it's going to be a little easier to force through something early doors. Force of Will again. That's okay. We don't really need this Troll. I would like to draw the reanimation spell. I'll put the Force on top and then put this in hand. A Stoneforge Mystic. I think I'm going to fight over this one, given our current position. I'm going to leave the Ponder because that can help find answers for it. Yeah, they're not going to fight over that. So on top of our library is a Troll of Khazad-dûm. I can Undercity Sewers to get rid of it. And then cast a Ponder. That seems pretty good. Although if we cast a Ponder, we don't have the Force. So I think I'm just going to bin off this Troll and probably cycle for a basic Swamp. Or we could save that as a shuffle. We'll see what our opponent's up to though. Because we have the basic here, we can always go and get the Swamp when we need it. I don't think it's worth fighting over a Troll using Forces, but it's worth fighting over one of the big monsters. I'm not going to cycle this Troll. Oops, all Trolls. So we've already seen Spell Pierce from our opponent. Do I want to Ponder here? Because we don't have a blue card to go with our Force. Something spooky happens. Alright, I'm going to go for the Ponder first. A Brazen Borrower, a Barrowgoyf. I like these cards a lot. Alright, let's try and get back this Troll. I'm not expecting this to work. I'm hoping that we get something like a Force out for it, though. Alright, we just didn't. So they're just going to Source to Plowshares it. I'm not going to fight over this. So we're going to draw a Force of Will, which can go with this Force of Will. And then we're looking at cycling Trolls to get that other Troll off the top of our library. We can probably cycle for a Surveil land and try and fix our deck for next turn. If they don't have an answer to this, though, it will just clap them around the ears a few times and win the game. They're going to plow it in our upkeep to dodge something like Force of Negation. But now we can hardcast Force of Negation. So not sold on that one. Alright, so let's attack. Let's see what is cracking here. Oh, we're just in, are we? Do I play around spot removal or do I play around a sweeper here? If they have spot removal, they would have used it. So I don't want to necessarily play into... it's tricky. I think we're going to cycle this Troll for Undercity Sewers this turn. Just try and get some selection going. Okay, I will just keep throwing Barrowgoyf at my opponent until they die. That seems like a perfectly serviceable way to win a game of Magic the Gathering. So we have Brazen Borrower up if we need it for some reason. Unlikely though. But mainly we're just holding up this Force of Will with the Borrower. And then we're just going to try and smash our opponent's face a few times with this Troll. So doing something in the end step here, because they've gone and got a non-basic. And it's not like a Meticulous Archive, which I have to imagine is in our opponent's deck in some number. A Brainstorm. So doing this at our end step rather than before we attack. Because they couldn't risk us having a Sorcery Speed Entomb Reanimate line. There is a Ponder from our opponent. They are digging, but can they find what they're looking for? Our plan is to turn the Troll sideways, deploy the Barrowgoyf, and then give our opponent something to worry about. Because they might have been in a situation where they were so busy living in fear of the Entomb Reanimate line that they're going to get beaten by the just life and death line on a reasonable creature instead of the unreasonable big reanimation target ones. Alright, looks like Troll might be getting to fight again. Alright, just getting plowed straight away. That's fine. We have more threats. We're going to Troll cycle in the end step as well. So we've got hardcast Force of Will mana over there. But they're going to have to interact with our Barrowgoyf, which then gives us a window to resolve something around hardcast Force of Will. So just get this basic Swamp, just so we're covered from back to basics, if that's the thing we have to worry about. Snapcaster Mage. This is going to get back a Swords to Plowshares. Do I want them to have a Snapcaster? Is this where I'm fighting over? They have 4 more cards in hand, though. That's so many. I think we'll allow this one because we have another Barrowgoyf. And 1 Barrowgoyf is usually enough. Okay, I don't mind a little Brainstorm action. Do I need to Brainstorm right now? I could find something like a Thoughtseize, so I think it's worth brainstorming. We found an Entomb Reanimate line that we can back up with counter magic. That's pretty strong. But we have to get rid of 2 of these cards. I kind of want all of these cards. What do we need least here? Probably the Swamp. I think I want to play a Barrowgoyf this turn. Which means we'll probably go Swamp Entomb. And just deploy the Barrowgoyf. And then we have access to Entomb and Death on next turn, which can go and get us an Atraxa, which can give us a boatload of cards. It will play into a potential Red Blast, but Red Blast is really not very good against the Reanimator deck. So I don't know how many our opponent will have in. Because most of our threats are black, it's just the Atraxa really that you hit. And they didn't see the Murktide in game 1, I don't think. A Snapcaster Mage. What is this going to find them? A Ponder or a Brainstorm? That's fine. That's not worth fighting here. The free body they're getting off the Snapcaster isn't actually too big of a deal for us either. Right, so they've got Plow here. Okay, so now we can just Entomb, Reanimate, and Atraxa, I think, with Counter Magic backup. So this is worth using a Force of Will over for us. I don't want to see a Spell Piercer. Alright, we're still fighting. This is good, it's good. Do you have a Force as well? We haven't seen one yet, have we? There is a Force of Negation. Okay. A little bit awkward. But we can just draw Metamorphosis Fanatic and have a jolly good time here. Our opponent's pretty low on resources. We do have the better clock here, I think. Do I want to Thoughtseize first or do I want to play the Dauthi Voidwalker first? I think I want to Thoughtseize first. We can obviously put something underneath the Dauthi Voidwalker. Okay, I'll take this Plow. I'll just deploy this Dauthi. So our opponent needs to hit us 5 times. We need to hit them 4 times. So we do have a superior clock as it currently stands. But they can dress down to then trade. Looks like that's what our opponent is considering there. And Entomb, not really the one I wanted. I think I'm okay making this trade. I don't like it that much. But it buys us more time. And it's going to happen at some point, and this gets a dress down out of the way so that it's not going to be messing up our Atraxa if we draw any reanimation. So I think that is a worthwhile trade to make there. Our opponent is pretty much living off the top. They got a couple of cards in hand over there. So we'll see how they pan out. No, we're going to save this for the turn that we're going to do something so we know it resolves. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, so now we're going to Thoughtseize whatever they Stoneforge instead. This one's slipping away a little bit. Misty Rainforest. We don't have any more Surveil lands. This is going to stay in our hand for the purpose of Brainstorm. Let's get rid of that Cauldron. Alright, so the Surgical Extraction over there as well. Well, our opponent's deck is obviously drawing quite well, but they have a lot of good stuff to draw. Their deck is very much kitted out to beat this because we're playing like the best deck. We're playing a slightly underpowered version because we're not playing Reanimate, which I think might have cost us game 1 potentially. We would have been able to double spell in the turn we didn't. Oof. A Snapcaster as well. Yeah, our opponent's ripping pretty strong here. How are we going to get through this Surgical? Brainstorm probably would be a good draw for us. Allow us to turn this into a real card. Maybe give us a way of punching through this Surgical. Even just like a regular Metamorphosis Fanatic here is just fine. Teferi. Okay, that can just plus up this time and then have it ready to bounce any creature we draw out of play. Yeah, I think our opponent has done enough here. Alright, Ponder. Time for you to save us. This isn't any order in a shuffle. Just more lands. We've bottomed out here. So this is going to put us to 1. So fetch lands are off. Not that they're doing us anything anyway. We've only got 1 fetchable left in the deck. No, we've got 2 actually because we shuffled the Swamp back in. They're bouncing their own Snapcaster to go and get some value here. Oh, they're playing Lavinia. Interesting. I don't think that impacts us. Let's Metamorphosis Fanatic. Maybe they make a mistake in Surgical Extraction now. Actually, no, it won't be a mistake to have Teferi. Oh, we can't cast this actually because of Teferi, can we? Whoops. Alright, yeah, that's just game. For a minute I was like, wait, this is fine. It's like, nope, Teferi gets us there. Yeah, that was tough. Like, our opponent had a whole lot of stuff. I think game 1, if we'd have had Reanimate instead of Life and Death, we might have been able to double spell in a crucial turn, although our opponent did seem to have a lot of interaction. Like this one, we both ended up on empty, and then our opponent drew like Ponder, Snapcaster, Stoneforge and all that, and we just drew lands. So that was pretty close. I think it was very, very competitive. And I think on most days I'd be okay into this matchup. I think this was relatively even and we were certainly in it. All right, let's go to round 2. I'm not a big fan of this hand though. I think we should mulligan this one. It doesn't really do anything apart from stop a Force of Will check deck. Let's not get hit by any sort of Wasteland. I guess we keep this. Bottom the Archon because we can just dig that up when we need to. Fell Mire. Are we dead on turn 1? We're getting Thoughtseized. So my initial instinct is that our opponent's playing Oops or spells. Can we draw a Thoughtseize? Would be nice. A Wasteland. Would I rather have a Wasteland or a Daze here? They're kind of the same thing. So I'm just going to Wasteland here. Load spell. Are we dead? Our opponent has full information of our hand. But if they could have killed us last turn, then they would have, right? Because they knew that it was safe. So they obviously can't kill us this turn. Unless they've drawn another big mana payoff. Because they presumably needed that 1 mana to get towards their 4 mana. Something's happening. Cabal Ritual. Oh, is this Necro? No, he's Undercity Informer. Okay. Oh, they just have the mana. Could they not have done that last turn? We'll see what build they are in case that's relevant, because if they're the fully green build, that gives us a little bit more information. They got like Disciple of Frail Eyes and stuff. No, they're just kind of the stock one here. Alright. Oops, all spells. Did not pass the Force of Will check. Ghost Vacuum isn't great, but it does do something sometimes. Dauthi Voidwalker will have these. I would like Force of Negation. We can consign some of the stuff. This is going to be a weird game where we just have to not lose the game and then eventually we win the game. Let's see. So let's just pull all of our reanimation stuff over here. I think the Metamorphosis Fanatic can probably go. We need to keep all of our counter magic. I think things that are just fine threats are fine threats. Do we even need any of this stuff? I do like entombing for Atraxa, getting Atraxa back and having access to more ways of interacting with our opponent. That feels like a good shout. Which means you probably don't need Archon of Cruelty. Although we can sort of drain our opponent's hand over the course of a few turns. We're always getting Atraxa here, aren't we? So we can strip out some of these things. Do we have enough time to ponder? Probably not. But do we have enough blue cards? Probably not. I don't think we can afford to cut these. Let's just have a little look. 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, I don't want to cut any blue cards because of that. Maybe we are just cutting like a bunch of things and just having like a Barrowgoyf plan to win with. Barrowgoyf and Dautheize. And we can keep an Atraxa in because it's blue and we can sometimes surveil it away. That's probably okay-ish here. Actually, no, we should probably get rid of a couple of Animate Deads to bring in a couple of Entombs. That makes slightly more sense, I think. Or 3 Animate Deads, 1 Entomb. Okay, that's fine. So our Graveyard Hate here isn't the best. We actually need something a bit more hardcore, but we can't really do that. Okay, 2 pieces of Graveyard Hates and a Thoughtseize. And a Force of Negation. Well, I will keep this one. Okay, Leyline of the Void. That's why we bought out a lot of our stuff here. So we go and get ourselves an Underground Sea. Take a bite out of our opponent's hand. What do they got? They have a Goblin Charbelcher and a Thoughtseize. Do I care about the Thoughtseize? Not hugely. I'll take the Charbelcher. So what we can do here is try and find ourselves a Barrowgoyf, and because our opponent's putting stuff in their graveyard, it will still be reasonable enough to win the game, even though our graveyard is not an active zone due to this leyline. I believe Oops All Spells is currently the 4th best performing deck in the format in terms of its number of challenge top 8. It took our Surgical Extraction. Play this Ghost Vacuum. I don't really want to just vacuum our opponent's stuff because I want them to have cards in graveyard for our Barrowgoyf. But this just means if they go and they don't have any additional mana for their Jack-O-Lantern, then they can't win. So they need to have additional mana. Okay, the Jack-O-Lantern is a card they're going to be cycling into the graveyard at some point, but we can remove the Jack-O-Lantern itself, which is kind of important. A Ponder. Yeah, that's a pretty good draw. See what we can find here. Barrowgoyf, Undercity Sewers, Brazen Borrower. I like all of these cards. So I guess we put... Would I rather have the Borrower? Would I rather have the Borrower, or would I rather have the Barrowgoyf next turn? Barrowgoyf is going to be 2-3. Brazen Borrower will hit for more damage. So I guess we're just going to play the Borrower here. We'll play this and we'll say no to the Surveil. I'm just going to Borrower, start knocking down our opponent's life total. We could just bounce the leyline and try and work that way. I'm not even sure that's a great use of our time, because that's going to cost us a turn on our clock. We can play this in our opponent's turn. If they mess with us, exile up to 1 target card from the graveyard. Okay. Getting rid of their own Charbelcher so we can't surgical it. We have the ability to Ghost Vacuum away the Lantern, which is actually pretty big news. A Dark Ritual. A Goblin Charbelcher. Okay, this is my plan here. We have a new win condition. It involves our opponent's Pact of Negations. Do they have a Lion's Eye Diamond or something to pop this now? Because we're just going to bounce this in our turn. I suppose they have the second Pact here, don't they? Which is kind of annoying. Because then our Borrower doesn't actually work the way we want it to. So if we Petty Theft this, they can just Pact of Negation, and then if they have a Dark Ritual, they get to win next turn anyway. Because these triggers will go on the stack and then they win in response. Awkward. Yep, so just use the Spirit Guide and they dome us. Yeah, Oopsal spells, pretty tough. When they do their thing, like if they ever keep a 7-card hand, they pretty much win, but they don't keep a 7-card hand that often. Alright, struggling a little bit there. Let's go to round 3. This hand is okay. We've got the ability to move some stuff around with Brainstorms. It's a little bit slow, but it's fine. Our deck isn't trying to like just wombo combo people out of nowhere. If we get the Misty Rainforest, we can just play off of basics here. This can get us our island, this can get us our swamp, and then we're just safe from Wastelands, which is more of a deal now that we don't have a 1-mana reanimation spell. A basic mountain. Are we looking at Painter? Are we looking at sort of mono-red Stompy? We just don't know. I don't think I want to just fire this off now for like a Surveil land. Let's play this one out. Let's crack, go and get ourselves a basic island here and cast a Brainstorm. I wouldn't mind getting a look at what our opponent's up to. I don't think we need this Borrower just yet. And we can stick a Brainstorm away as well. Let's go get our basic swamp and see what our opponent is doing over there. Oh wow, our opponent's on some mono-red Splinter Twin apparently. So next turn they can play Fable and Mirror Breaker. Not a big lover of seeing that one. Our creatures are going to be pretty large. So attacks the first time each turn. There are 4 more card types. Untapped target creature. So this plus Splinter Twin, if they have Delirium, is just the game. Am I supposed to care about that? I don't know. Are we supposed to just get the best card and take out the Fable? That's probably correct. We've got the Daze here if we need it. Chromox makes that a little bit awkward, but if they're putting resources into Chromox just to pair around Daze, that kind of already answers one problem for us. Put the Splinter Twin underneath it, sure. So we don't have to worry about any sort of combo shenanigans just yet. It's just going to be broadside bombardiers. So we're going to get in a situation soon where they Fury and then we reanimate their Fury. That is a plan we're going for. So we're going to Swamp Cycle this, play this, Death, bring this back. So we might take a bit of a hit in the very near future here. But the plan is they Fury and kill our Troll. Then we bring back Fury, kill their broadside. Because Animate Dead can hit cards in either graveyard. If they hardcast a Fury, then we just Daze it and they're really cooked. Okay. They have a Soul Land. I wonder if they throw this Chrome Mox. There had to be a Soul Land here. That is a real pain for us. So yes, they're going to put 4 damage on this and they're going to throw the Chrome Mox to finish it off. Why could they not have drawn a regular land? We just immediately... Okay, they just throw the Fury at us and win actually, didn't they? Yeah, that line was available too. Alright, that was a bit shameful of me. What are we doing here? We want some removal and we want some explosives. We want some Barrowgoyfs. So I want this selection of stuff. Daze looks very poor against our opponent, as you saw. I don't mind the Thoughtseize, especially on the play. How much of our graveyard line are we going to ease off on? Ease off a little bit. How much time do we have to cast Ponders and things? How many blue cards do we have to cast Ponders and to cast Forces? 17, that is so few blue cards. We really can't cut any blue cards here. Cut one more piece of reanimation. We'll cut an Entomb. Do you want to go down to just 5 pieces of reanimation? That's okay. I think if we Animate Dead, bring back the Troll instead that turn, then our opponent has to... Well, they just throw the Chrome Mox at it, and then we're kind of in trouble. Yeah, I don't think we had a great line there at all. We can play around Blood Moon, but our hand is very slow. We also have a counter spell for something spooky. Our opponent's probably going to be investing a lot of resources. We have Barrowgoyf, which can kind of solo the red decks. I think I'm going to keep this one. I think annoyingly we have to play out this so we can just make sure we're playing on our basics and we don't have to force a Will of Blood Moon. No Leyline or anything to start with. They might have Unlicensed Hearse as a thing they can play on turn 1 with a Soul Land. Alright, I'm not going to fight over this Chrome Mox. I'll allow our opponent to spend 2 resources. A Splinter Twin. Our opponent's deck is cool, but definitely cool. Alright, so Spending a lot of resources for whatever this turn is. Is the One Ring? Defense Grid. If we don't counterspell this, we never get to counterspell anything ever again. Do we want our opponent living in fear? This also turns off our removal spells. Alright. I don't like this. Go and get our basic island. Let's go and get a basic swamp. Just be set up to ignore Blood Moon. Troll of Khazad-dûm, not the one I want. So let's do some surveilling here. And Animate Dead. Sure, that's fine. We can bring back a troll whilst having a Barrowgoyf kicking around. The Barrowgoyf being 4/5 already means it's going to be quite difficult for our opponent to deal with that one. A Pyrogoyf. Sure. It's a big dome to the face there. Now we get to play Argoyf. And Argoyf beats this one in combat because of Death Touch. To have more Goyfs, then sure, they're just going to throw a bunch of stuff at us and we're going to die. So they have another Pyrogoyf. They're not attacking here. Makes sense. We get to attack though. See if we mill any sweet monsters to reanimate. I'll take this Brazen Borrower, I think. It's a blue card for potential Force of Wills. Let's have a Troll of Khazad-dûm, please. We should have used Undercity Sewers first, actually. That was a bit of a spew. Very macabre. Okay, it didn't matter anyway. Might have actually worked in our favour. Weirdly. Force of Will. Sure, I'm okay to have that. We can always shuffle it away if we don't want it. But we have a 6/7 lifelink creature that draws us cards every turn. We have a 6/7 non-lifelink creature. But if they find another Pyrogoyf, or a Splinter Twin on the Pyrogoyf is going to be pretty good too. It's weird, they're not attacking with this, but they're also didn't want to block with it. Very peculiar circumstances over there. So they're going to double block now. That's fine, by me. Let's just pay theft away this Simian Spirit Guide. They knew we had this Borrower, so it's kind of an interesting play they went for this. And I'm going to Animate Dead their Pyrogoyf, I think. Put them on notice. This very macabre. They do. Okay. That kills our Barrowgoyf, unfortunately for us. Yeah, pretty good line. Got another Pyrogoyf. Could you just not, opponent? Undercity. So this gives us hard cast Force of Will or Brazen Borrower. Our opponent kills us in 3 shots, we kill them in 4. So we are behind. But if we can find a bit of mana to get this troll out, then that will be okay. I don't really want to have to Force of Will here. Got a friend down. Polluted Delta. F3. Deploy the troll. Have lethal on the crackback next turn. And hopefully that's good enough. We're dead to Pyrogoyf anyway because they see each other, so they dome us for 12. So we just don't block here. And then we have 9 evasive damage. A Pyrogoyf, so they just dome us for 12 to the face. And that is the end of that chapter. Yeah, we got clowned pretty hard that round. Like, the double Fairy Macabre was pretty good. Maybe we could have intuited that. Like, they knew we had the Borrower. I shouldn't have assumed that our opponent just missed it. I think that was on me a little bit. We should have just taken the aid there. I guess it kind of works out similarly at the end of the day. We just cost our Borrower on a Spirit Guide. Because we still ended up trading anyway. We had the chance. No, maybe that was okay, actually. Tough. Tough stuff. All right, let's go to round 4. Island Ponder Keep. I think this is all right. A little bit land heavy. But these lands are Surveil lands. So they kind of do a little bit more work than normal. I could certainly see mulliganing this one. But it feels like we're relatively close to having something pretty busted. Our opponent's mulligan to 5. So we're probably looking for counter magic. Basic Island on the go and cast a Ponder. What have you got for us, deck? Thoughtseize, is that going to be too slow for what our opponent might be doing? They've mulliganed to 5. I think we have to just any order and shuffle here. A Murktide Regent. That's not great. So we might just die to get bopped on turn 1 here. Just failing a Force of Will check. Chalice? Chalice. Okay, that's fine. We have a Borrower. I don't feel so bad now. Entomb. Okay. So what is our play here? I guess we bounce this at end step and then we Entomb. on our turn. And if we draw a land, we can reanimate at the same time. Otherwise, we can just play an Undercity Sewers and chill. City of Traitors. We're going to see the One Ring here. Glaring Fleshraker. Pretty good against Archon of Cruelty as well. Let's crack this. I don't think we need to care about our lands getting wastelanded here. Let's bounce out this Chalice. This does give our opponent something to cast with a Fleshraker, which is important to note. A Force of Will. Didn't draw the land I wanted. Let's play this Undercity Sewers. A Barrowgoyf. It's not really what I'm about right now, is it? I could reanimate this. It's fine, but not exciting. We have an Entomb on the way. Put this into the graveyard. We have to decide what we're doing with our spells. Like, I think we're always entombing, but what are we entombing? Do we just want to get Atraxa and get that going? And if we do that, do we want to Force of Will this Chalice, or is there something scarier we need to hit? I guess once we've entombed, we don't really care about the Chalice. I guess it makes our second wave more difficult. We're just going to go get Atraxa here. I don't think we're going to care about this Chalice. It's like the One Ring is something I'm scared of. We're fine against the Wasteland here. Thought Not Seer. That can get right out. Say no to this. In comes the Fleshraker. Like, we could Thought Not Seer our opponent with Animate Dead. That doesn't feel amazing to me though. We might be able to get back their Thought Not Seer. Okay, we might be able to do that. So let's just get back our Atraxa first. If this finds us a land, we can then get back the Thought Not Seer. It does find us a land. I think I would like a Wasteland here. I'll take an enchantment. I'll take a creature in Brazen Borrower. I'll take a sorcery. It's a blue card. So now we reanimate this Thought Not Seer. Take a little peek at our opponent's hand. See what they're working with. The One Ring and So Mike Spawn. So Mike Spawn kind of doesn't really matter anymore. We've gotten to the point where we can kind of ignore that. They also don't have green mana. Just don't want them having the One Ring, drawing a bunch of cards, pinging us down with Fleshraker. Okay, they immediately drew the green source because why wouldn't they? So they can blow up 2 of our lands, but we can operate on 2 lands anyway. Now we can bring back a Barrowgoyf that is now a 4/5. And they are on like Eldrazi rather than like Karn Forge style combos, so we don't have to worry too much about that either. Are they going to blow up our Wasteland? A Blast Zone. So they're going to use this to blow up our Animate Dead, but that's not going to work because we have a Wasteland. Just Wasteland this now. Get out of here. Do I attack with a Thought Not Seer? They can put 2 creatures in front of it. That's honestly fine. They would get to draw a card as the only downside. So maybe we don't attack with it. I don't want them drawing a card. We just attack with Atraxa, make a Barrowgoyf, hold up Brazen Borrower. We can hardcast the Borrower if we don't Animate Dead, but we could also just play this Barrowgoyf. And I think our life total is important. Okay, our opponents just had enough. I don't blame them. Okay, so I'm expecting the Leyline of the Voids out of our opponent's sideboard. I would like 2 Consign to Memory. I would like some threats that don't care about our opponent's Leyline as much. I would like some removal spells. This is quite a lot being changed up in our deck here. Daze looks pretty poor against our opponent, generally speaking. Force of Will kind of doesn't do anything a lot of the time, and it's very frustrating. Feels like you kind of want it, but you can just die because they have a cavern and you just got this and there's all these cast triggers and you just never get to interact with your opponent. So I don't hate getting rid of this sort of stuff. I'm okay stripping a couple of Ponders out because we don't want to get locked array. We don't need the blue count anymore. We're just a black deck at this point. We have 3 Borrowers so we can unlock for a turn with our Entombs. I guess the Thoughtseizes aren't that exciting to me. Maybe we'll have a couple of explosives in to take out Chalice. You want any Thoughtseizes in? Have these Ponders back in. Let's try that. So quite often the only things you get to counter spell from Eldrazi decks is the mana and sometimes like a Chalice. But I think I'd rather have an answer for Chalice that I can draw after they've played Chalice in the explosives. Now 2 mana is quite a lot to crack it. It's basically a whole turn. So it's certainly not free to deal with the Chalice. But I think it's better than holding up like a Force and only having 1 target for it and needing to make sure it converts on that target instead of just being able to draw a thing later on that actually can answer it. I would like some mana in my opening hands. This is an easy mulligan. What does this hand actually achieve? We can maybe Entomb something. We don't have Reanimate for it. We have a useful counter spell. A little bit exposed to Wasteland, so we have the mana. Murktide Regent is probably not where we want to be. Our opponent's already mulliganed to 5, so maybe they're looking for a ley line and we can just bust it open with a Borrower. I think I'm going to keep this and I'm going to get rid of, I think it's the Murktide. I'm probably not going to play anything too scary on turn 1. So then turn 2 we can hold up a Consign. Now if they play the Chalice, then the Consign doesn't work until turn 2 of our turns. So our opponent can play something decent on turn 2. But they've mulliganed quite aggressively. I don't think Eldrazi is actually a particularly good deck in Legacy right now. It's very good against some decks that aren't very good in Legacy at the moment. Like control-y style decks. Obviously it can just like run people over. It does have some powerful draws in it. No leyline to begin the game with. There's a Cavern of Souls. This is why we boarded out the forces. And Eldrazi, they must pass here, I think. Can we draw a reanimation spell? We didn't draw a reanimation spell. I think I will deploy a Polluted Delta. We can hold up Consign to Memory or Entomb. And this way we're not just playing into Wasteland by playing out our Underground Sea. Eldrazi Temple. So we can stop a trigger, we can't stop a spell with this. A Chalice for 1. We have 2 options here. I think I'm just going to consign this. On Atraxa. I didn't really want to draw you, did I? We want to Entomb before we surveil land here. Just Entomb for Archon of Cruelty. And deploy this land. Try and... We don't really need another Entomb. Okay. We need to find a reanimation spell. Our opponent got through 2 turns without really doing anything. So that's good news for us. This is not so good news for us. But they don't have any follow-up. We can time walk them by bouncing it. Or we can just cast this and win the game, I guess. If our opponent doesn't have any graveyard hate. Alright, that's probably their game. And I will play out this land. This is very hard for our opponent to deal with once it's in play. Yep, our opponent is scooping it up. This is a good example of why Eldrazi isn't so hot right now. This is actually a matchup where having 2 mana reanimation spells as opposed to 1 mana reanimation spells can actually be an advantage because of things like Chalice. Because we can just get our Entomb and then know that all of our reanimation spells will be live even through a Chalice, which is kind of nice. But again, 2 mana against the Wasteland deck with Micro Spawns isn't always ideal either. So there's definitely some significant trade-offs. And there's a reason why people are running Reanimate. Reanimate is a better card than this for sure. But it's just how big is the gulf. Alright, we're on the board finally. We've had some pretty rough games so far, but we're on the board. Let's see how we can finish this league out. We are 1-3. Let's see if we can put the 2-3 on the board. On the place of fun around, no mana, so let's mulligan this one. Still no mana, so we're going back to drawing some more cards here. Let's have a look. Yikes. We have to go to 4 here. Alright, we found some stuff that plays. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a strategy, isn't it? We Thoughtseize our opponent. We Troll of Khazad-dûm. We Animate Dead. Are we supposed to Thoughtseize on 1? Given the nature of the format, I think we probably have to. It does expose us to Wasteland. But we're already kind of in trouble here. So I think we just have to suck it up. If they have a Wasteland and beat us with it, fine. I can live with that. Not a Wasteland. Okay. Yeah, this is a little rude selection of things, isn't it? I'll take this Force, I think. We might be able to play through the Daze. And the Brainstorm is also a pretty acceptable take there as well, so we just know what we're playing up against. Ugh. Why would you do this to your opponent? Why would you draw the Thoughtseize right there? That is the story of today's leagues. I don't think the games we're losing are because we're running Life and Death. We're just getting absolutely pounded by some pretty savage top decks and draws here and there. Well, this doesn't work because we know they have a Daze. We could just hit our opponent's land and just see if we cheese them. I think that's the route to victory we have is to cheese our opponent. Any land means that we can play this because they can't use a Daze. Ah, come on. Come on. They top deck the Thoughtseize, which is like the perfect draw. Then they top deck the land. Unbelievable. Oh dear, oh dear. Sometimes the magic gods aren't against you. I'm not saying I've played this league perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but there's definitely a few bits that have jammed us up more than I would like. So I don't really know what our opponent's got. They've probably put back a Fatal Push. It's not particularly high value in this matchup for the most part. Cycling a Troll. They're going to reanimate. They should reanimate their own Troll rather than ours. Reanimate. They're reanimating our Troll. That's weird. Because if it gets bounced by a Borrower, then it goes into our... Oh no, they are... Yeah, if this gets bounced by a Borrower, it goes into our hand. I think you're supposed to reanimate your own. Maybe they just have so many tools that they just think they can style on us anyway. Alright, I'll give it one more draw and then we're scooping it up. This is just a mulligan to 4 and then our opponent... our mulligan to 4 was a good 4. It was a solid 4, but our opponent ripped the perfect 2 turns in a row after a Thoughtseize. It's going to happen sometimes. Like, we set ourselves up in a position where we could win that game on a mull to 4. Wasn't to be. We also don't have Reanimate in our deck. So if this was Reanimate, then we could like try and get this Daze out of our opponent's hand. And then maybe have a 2-drop working next time. Okay, I'm going to Thoughtseize now. Have a look at our opponent's hand. I don't believe there's any reason to keep playing. I just want to get a bit more information to see if there's anything spicy going on. I highly doubt it. Yep, sure. You can just Daze that and we don't get to see. Okay. Well, that was pretty savage. What would I like to do about this? I think Ghost Vacuum and Surgical look interesting to me. I like Fatal Pushes if they're going to be on their creature plan. I like Go for the Throat if they're going to be on the creature plan. I like these creatures a lot. So these are the 6 I definitely want in. Do I want to be playing a counterspell game against our opponent? I don't want to be 2 for 1 in myself in a matchup that is very value oriented. This does not hit creatures in our opponents, so I think we're trimming on these. That gives us 60 cards here. Do I want these Fatal Pushes and Go for the Throats for our opponent's fair plan? I think we probably have to respect it to some degree. Maybe we're trimming out an Entomb. I guess let's Go for the Throat. Maybe we just get rid of all the life and deaths here. Just get a Fatal Push in. I like the Brazen Borrower, especially since our opponent already made the mistake of reanimating our guy when they didn't have to. Is 2 removal spells enough here? Do I need more? Do I like Dazes that much? Maybe we'll have 3 removal, 3 days. How good is that? Our opponent's going to play around Daze the whole game, aren't they? Let's not insult our opponent's intelligence. Like, maybe we can have a clutch Daze, or we don't really want to draw a bunch of them. Maybe we can keep a 7-card hand. Okay, yeah, I'll keep this. So we know what our opponent's doing, which means we want to ponder before we Thoughtseize. Our hand is pretty Thoughtseize proof. We're not very Wasteland proof. So we need to ensure that we can get some more land drops by casting this ponder. That's in any order in a shuffle. And then we drew worst draw in the deck. Nothing from our opponent. This is probably an Entomb. I think we have to Brainstorm here. Looking for a land. Like, if we're not hitting land drops, we're not winning this game anyway. What is happening today? Disgusting behavior from our deck there. Absolutely disgusting. Filthy. Sometimes the magic gods are against you. So this is an end of turn Entomb. We have a Surgical Extraction, but if they can back it up, then okay, it's not. It's just an end of turn Brainstorm. Or Troll Cycle, sure. They can reanimate this, obviously. We can Surgically Extract it. We're not in a position to beat this, so... Can we resolve this? I suspect not. If we can survive long enough to draw out of this Brainstorm lock, then I think we'll be okay, because we obviously have a lot of powerful resources we can leverage. But sometimes you cast Ponder and a Brainstorm and you just don't find the land and you die. And that is Magic the Gathering. Force of Will, pitching Ponder. Alright, so they really want their Troll. It kills us in 3 turns. We are Brainstorm locked. A Delver of Secrets. Well, we can kill that at least. And get to cast a spell. So we could Ponder. Looking for land. We know the top card of our library is rubbish. So I think Pondering makes a lot of sense here. Wasteland isn't really what we want to be here, is it? This is an any orange shuffle. Come on, deck. Like, we could have kept the Wasteland, but it doesn't cast this Fatal Push. If we could take the Wasteland... If that was a Brainstorm so we could get the Wasteland and the Troll, then I'd be more inclined, but... Alright, so they're making sure this flips, so they're going to try and 2-turn us. So we find a land, we bounce the Troll. They didn't flip their Delver after Brainstorming. That's incredible. That gives me the impression that they have spells they really, really want in hand. Or they just... Oh, Christ. This is a very, very brutal round, this one. Like, we should be losing to the Mirror because they have a slight upgrade because they're running Reanimates and we're not. So this isn't really the testing we wanted to have. We wanted to play against the other decks, but we only played against Blue Black Reanimator once, so we can't complain too much on that front. So we take 6 here, that's half of our life total. And now we're in... Can we Brazen Borrower this out of play? Or are we dead? You can reanimate a Delver. This won't kill us on its own. But it might do if it has a friend. I don't think we can pay attention to these. We just have to try and answer this. Okay, so we can fatal push this, but that doesn't matter. They had a friend carve anyway. I was just seeing if they had any interesting tech at all. Yep, we just lost to ourselves on that one. We got through a quarter of our deck and only found one land. It's going to happen sometimes, and it sucks. All right, that is the end of the league. Now, our record of 1-4 is very poor. However, how many games did we lose with our deck because we had Life and Death in our deck instead of Reanimate? I think only one game, which was against the blue-white control deck, or the Jeskai control deck, where I think maybe would have been able to double spell. Now, they might have still had an answer, because they did have a lot of answers that game. But maybe being able to double spell would have been enough in that particular game. So, potentially it cost us a game. I don't think any of the other rounds were lost because we were running Life and Death in our deck. So, that's an interesting one to think about. So, let's talk about the list. Obviously, this is going to be a step down from having Reanimate in your deck. That's why we're testing it, to see if banning would be enough. Now, even though we went 1-4, I don't think this deck looks particularly bad at all. Like I said, the only time that the card mattered, really, was in like one game, and a lot of the time it was just fine, and we just kind of... The things we got bodied by, we would have got bodied by if we had Reanimate in our deck. So, you know, when we're getting clowned on by all these Barrowgoyfs or whatever, that sort of jam. Do I think this is the optimal build for Blue-Black Reanimator without having access to Reanimate? I don't think that's where I would necessarily go. I think Metamorphosis Fanatic is really good. Now, obviously, you have to set it up and stuff, but it's just a fine card on its own. And if you're getting a little bit weaker, you can play a card that has a bit of a higher upside, like a Metamorphosis Fanatic. And also, in the post-board games, this becomes a lot better because it doesn't care about the graveyard in terms of just being a 2-mana 4/4 lifelink, which you can beat people down with. So, I think maybe next time I would probably go down to go up to 2 Fanatics and go down to 2 Life and Death. The Life and Death was fine for what it was. Not ideal, but certainly playable. We used it a few times, we won some games. Maybe if you play this, you end up shifting a little bit more and going back to like Tainted Indulgence, which people were trying for a while, as a way of cycling through some of the big monsters you draw. That could be an option. You could also go more into like the tempo plan. So you could just play Entombs and Animate Deads and maybe like 1 Fanatic, and then just turn these 3 cards into like Barrowgoyfs or like some sort of 2-drop creature like Orcish Bowmasters you can have instead, and just run like a fairish deck that has these Animates and Entombed Deads. Then you can still capitalize off the Trolls, and then you can just shuffle away the Entombs when you don't want them. Like, I think that would be reasonable. There's definitely ways you could take this deck, and I do not think banning Reanimate will kill this deck at all. I think what this deck does, Reanimate is the easily replaceable card in the deck. Like, there is a card that is just Reanimate. It has the exact same text. Well, not the exact same text. You can't reanimate your opponent's creatures. But it's almost the exact same text in Life and Death. It just costs 1 more mana. And I think that 1 mana is a big deal, but I don't think it's a big enough deal to stop this being like the best deck in the format. It is the best deck in the format. Obviously, today's league, you might go, didn't look very good. But some of the circumstances we found ourselves in today were a bit much. So I think, for me, Reanimate being banned would not be the one to hit for this deck. It's not a unique effect. It's easily replaceable. It's just like kind of efficient. So I don't think that's where I would go if I was trying to weaken this deck. I'm going to try and play a version of this deck without Troll of Khazad-dûm at some point soon, because I would like to see if banning Troll of Khazad-dûm would make a big difference. I think this will make a much bigger difference to the deck than banning the Reanimate would. Obviously, I still think Entomb is the one to go, but Entomb kind of just kills off this package. So at some point, I'm going to play a Reanimation deck without Entomb and see how that would look. If it would just kill off all types of Reanimator if you banned Entomb. I don't think it does. I think you can still play Reanimator. And because of the quality of the monsters that you get these days, it means that dedicating your whole deck to reanimating stuff is a fine thing to do. And we do see like mono black Reanimator decks playing. Obviously they still have Entomb, but it wouldn't take much to tweak that in a way where it's still really solid. So those are some things that you can expect on the channel soon. Just sort of testing to see what the future meta could look like and getting some more information so I can have a more informed opinion about what I think should be banned. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out. And goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.